Hello again. It I would like to go on into Second Corinthians at the particular time, but Lord kind of put the kibosh on that. Our president has recognized the city of Jerusalem as being the capital of Israel, which makes a whole bunch of sense because it really is, and the whole planet Earth has jumped ready to roll over it, as I figured it would. Even the little botched attempt at pipe bombing that went on in New York, and all the riots have gone on in so-called Palestine, and some other stuff that's been going on, especially in the United Nations. I call that a oxymoron. Anyway, that really inspired me. I felt led of the Lord, really inspired to go look up into stuff that's going to happen in the last days before the rapture. And one of these things that is going to happen, that has been predicted for a couple of thousand years now, all the way back into the book of Isaiah, and all the way back into the Psalms, there will be a war that happens, and featuring Israel and all the countries around Israel that really don't like them very much. And when you figure that the original Abraham kids have been toe to toe slugging it out for quite some time now, there's a thing. The city of Damascus is one of those indicators that I do believe of the end of the end times. It says in chapter 17 of the book of Isaiah, it says, the burden of Damascus, something that weighs, something around your neck that's hung on you. The burden will be relieved. It'll be done away with. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city and shall be a ruinous heap. Now, people have come by Damascus and taken it over and knocked the city down, but it was always built back. You're talking about a ruinous heap. You're talking about something that's been eliminated and not to be built back. I looked up into the Hebrew into the ruinous heap. We're talking about a city that's basically reduced to gravel, and it's a beautiful city, and it's the most occupied city for the most time on this earth, and which is good, I guess. But it will cease to be a city. It will just start to be a giant gravel pile. Now, there's something that the Israelis have they never discuss much. That is nuclear weapons. They have, from what I understand and read about, they actually have about 200 nuclear weapons that they can deploy at any time. And if you know those Israelis, they can be, it takes them 10 minutes to get cranked up to do anything, because they got so many people around that want you to destroy it, want them destroyed. I don't blame them at all. Even had a couple of rockets fired in, and one of them was knocked down by the Iron Dome, which somebody really complained about the Israelis talking about. Said it's a shame they're talking about rockets when they have people firing rockets into their country when they have a means to destroy them. Yeah, if somebody's firing rockets into this country, I'm going to gripe about it, because at one time, 1 month, the people in Gaza fired 4,000 rockets. That's something to talk about. It's just rather ridiculous to me that somebody would gripe about them talking about it. Anyway, they have nuclear weapons. They have 200 plus nuclear weapons. They never talk about them because they don't want to brag them up. They're even during the 73 Yom Kippur War, when I believe it was Egyptians came across the border, They had actually loaded some of their nuclear weapons on fighters in case that things got so bad out of hand that they couldn't control the situation. This is the one where Nixon actually sent them arms and ammunition and aircraft and guns and the whole shooting match they needed to defend themselves. But they have a thing that's called the Sampsons Option. And if you know the story of Samson, you know that he got between the pillars of the temple, and he pushed the pillars apart, destroyed the temple as well as everybody in there, as well as himself. It's kind of like you'd call a last-ditch effort. If you can't win, nobody wins. But they do have the Sampsons Option, and it may be a point in time where they actually feel the need to use those weapons to defend themselves. Now, Damascus, this war that we're talking about, it says, "Behold, at evening trouble, and before the morning he is not." That's Syria. He is not. And we're talking about a war that less than a day, less than 24 hours. I've discussed it with people on the know that they say a average nuclear war will last about 5 minutes. And it's easy to understand that when the nukes hit, everything's over. But I really believe, this is thus saith Casey, that it will be something that is taken care of, and Damascus will get nailed by a nuclear weapon. Now, if you've ever seen pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the World War II, after we dropped 2 nukes on Japan, you can see the devastation. And I've heard from anywhere from 10 to 12 megatons in those weapons, and over 100,000 people killed in those 2 attacks, and plus the city was just wiped clean. I guarantee you that the nukes that are owned by Israel got a lot more punkin than that. We have nukes called MIRVs, multiple insertion re-entry vehicles, 5 to 7 on each missile, each one for 5,100 megatons. And talk about destroying the world. We can do it. Yeah, anyway. It's always have a good offense. You know, your best defense is always a good offense. But so what Syria does have, and a number of nations around Israel, is missiles and the ability to shoot stuff in there, like like conventional weapons or chemical weapons or any kind of weapon or mass destruction can be delivered with a missile. From nukes on down. And I really believe that the Israelis and those people around Israel are going to get into it. It's a judgment coming from God against both, but Israel will win. You can guarantee that they will win. This says they win. After I go through this, I'm going to go through Psalms 83, and it gives you a better breakdown on what's going on. And there's some other things in here I'm going to show you from different places that really kind of describes this. It says, well, anyway, the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. I mean, a gravel pile, just junk everywhere, not worth, nothing worth rebuilding. So it just ceases to be a city, even though it's the oldest occupied city on earth. It's been occupied more time than any other place on earth. But it will be gone. And the cities of Aurora, which are around Damascus, are forsaken. I mean, they'll be wiped out too, to the point that they shall be for flocks, which shall lie down, and none shall make them afraid. There's nothing around to, there's flocks of sheep that are grazing where those cities were. And there's nothing there that can, make them want to move. The forces is also taken from Ephraim, which is another, Ephraim is mostly the northern kingdom of Israel. A lot of time was called Ephraim. The tribe of Ephraim has a place in there, but it's kind of a thing to kind of let you know that this is northern Israel we're talking about. And the kingdom of Damascus, okay, the fortress also shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdom of Damascus, and the remnant of Syria. Talking about leftovers. They shall be as the glory of the children of Israel, saith the Lord of hosts. All this thing, people killed left and right. There'll be some massive destruction in both countries. First of all, talking about Damascus, where the city just turned to rubble, and the cities around it, and also Israel is going to take a tremendous amount of damage as well. They're going to lose a lot of people. Talk about the glory of the children of Israel is diminished. I tell you what, as far as the world is concerned, they have no glory whatsoever. In fact, most of those countries around there really, really want to see them gone. They just soon push them into the ocean. Once again, the term ISIL, Islamic State in Levant, which means the Middle East without Israel. They started calling it ISIL after ISIS. But our last president did too, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't their friend. But the glory, the thing that would make you want to look at Israel as something fantastic, but it'll be gone because there's so much damage and so much. The place is trashed out. Let's put it that way. And I'll show you how much. In that day it shall come to pass that the glory of Jacob shall be made thin. That's Israel. And the fatness of his flesh shall wax lean. Its glory, nothing there to glory about. And the fatness of his flesh shall wax lean. We're talking about things that produced vegetation, food. It's fatness. When you're talking about, most of the time in the Old Testament, you talk about fatness. You're talking about something abundant, and food, things like that. So it shall, when the harvestman gathereth the corn, and he reapeth the ears with his arm, it shall be as he is that gathereth ears in the valley of Rephaim, which is a growing area. But here's the difference. Yet gleaning grapes shall be left in it. There was a time under the law that if you went out and plucked all your grapes, you should leave something there for poor folks to come home and glean the rest. Just like Ruth. She went in the fields after Boaz's men went out there and harvested, and you're supposed to leave the corners of your field. And she went in there and started gleaning, and basically to get enough food to stay alive. But it'll start out that way. There'll be what's left over because it's been slapped so hard. Gleaning grapes shall be left in it. The shaking of the olive tree, 2 or 3 berries in the top of the uppermost bough, 4 or 5 in the utmost fruitful branches. Therefore, saith the Lord, it's like you have to go there and shake the tree to get anything down, because there's not very much in there left. It just basically what's left after this attack, after this war, is what would be left after people would pick all the fruit off and leave those berries behind for poor folks to glean. And that's all they're going to get to begin with. Now, that's tough. A lot of dead people. Their glory, everything gone. In the day shall a man look to his maker. Okay, here's the difference. They had a thing going, they were friendly with a lot of these nations around there. And they got rich. I mean, Israel is fat. I mean, they got things going on. The Lord has brought them back in there. I think it's 25% of the vegetables that are eaten in Europe actually come out of Israel. Flowers, things left and right. The place is a garden. The thing is, when they came back in there, they came in there in unbelief. It's hard to find somebody that actually believes in God in Israel. Yes, they have a new class of rabbis being trained and things like that, and it's good to know that there are a group of Messianic Jewish churches in there. People are born again Jews, and they're growing. But as far as the people, actually the belief in God in Israel is pretty small. The Muslims are mostly the ones who actually believe in a God, even though it's a something made up, not the God of the moon, but it's not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is not really well respected in Israel. And at that day shall a man look to his Maker, and his eyes shall have respect to the Holy One of Israel. People after this will start turning to God. I guarantee you a good old-fashioned disaster in a lot of cases has made people actually turn to God, because all the stuff that they worshipped, all the fantastic things they've owned, once it's all gone, I mean, there's nothing left for them, so they'll actually turn to their Maker. A lot of people have become believers when the fatness of everything is gone, and that's what is going on here. And he shall not look to the altars, the work of his hands, neither shall respect that which his fingers have made, either the groves or the images. We're talking about, in this particular case, when this prophecy was written, had a lot of Baal worship going on. So they're not going to look to those altars, and they're going to look to the things that men worship these days, like money, possessions, cars, I mean, everything that people can replace God with. They're not going to look to those things because they basically realize they're up a creek. I think the last time we talked about something like, let's pray about that. It says, are we down to that? Yeah, these people are down to that, and they're really realizing they need to look to the God of Israel, the one that made them. In that day shall his strong cities be as forsaken bough, and uppermost branch, which they left because of the children of Israel, and there shall be desolation. It's tough. Things are thin, because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation, and hast not mindful of the rock of thy strength. Therefore shalt thou plant pleasant plants, and thou shalt set it with strange slips. Stuff that not native, things that foreign. In the day shalt thou make thy plant to grow, and in the morning shalt thou make thy seed to flourish, but the harvest shall be a heap in the day of grief, of desperate sorrow. I guarantee you, what we plant, we will sow. We plant images, yeah, that's what's going to, that thing is going to come back from God. Anything you worship instead of God is going to come back to bite you. All this foreign stuff going on here, all the foreign gods, all of it has come back to bite them. God has got their attention now. That's why they turn to the Maker, the God of Israel. That's why they turn to him, because all the stuff that they had, everything that they've planted, everything that they've built, has been destroyed. And God is what they have left, but they're going to find out the hard way. That's what they had to. He is what they really had to begin with, but they wouldn't recognize it because they made gods out of everything else. Woe to the multitude of thy people which made a noise like the noise of seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. Lots of noise. Pointless noise. The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters, but God shall rebuke them, and they shall flee far off, and they shall be chased as the chaff of the mountains before the wind, and like a rolling thing before the whirlwind. We're talking about those foreign nations that come into Israel to try to destroy it. But they will be fronted off. God will, even though Israel will catch a lot of damage and there'll be a lot of dead people around, they still win. The biggest winner is the people that turn back to the Maker. All these people, all this noise, the seas are usually an indicator of a large group of people. You saw that in the Revelation, talking about out of many waters. That's what these people are. They're a great big rushing noise of humans that rush toward Israel, thinking they're going to destroy it. And they go home in a bad shape, the ones that do make it back. And their countries are in bad shape, including Damascus, the city, Syria. It's going to be in a horrible shape. But God turns them back. He rebukes them. He makes them flee. Attacking Israel has not been a good thing for lots and lots of nations. The Syrians used to own the Golan Heights, which is a super duper strategic high place. And it's so important to those people around there. Now, somebody can park artillery on the Golan Heights and shoot into Jerusalem. They can pretty much cover the entire country. At one time, the Israelis had one of their operatives in Syria. He became part of the Syrian government. He was so well trusted. He said, I'll tell you what, up there on the Golan Heights, you know it's hot. And we have gun emplacements up there. So I'll tell you what, we're going to plant trees in those gun emplacements to get, to make shade. Nothing's too good for our Syrian soldiers. What he did was actually make targets with all those trees. And during the 6-day war, the only thing the Israelis had to really do was just aim at the trees. Now they finally caught him and they executed him. The guy's courage. He laid down his life for his country. But they took the Golan Heights away from the Syrians, and they occupy it now. The Syrians are going, oh, that's not really your place. We want it back. Right here, they're wanting to come get it back. Like I say, attacking Israel is not good for your health. You'll probably lose your health or your life. Verse 14, and behold, at eventide trouble, this thing starts in the evening, and before the morning he is not. Talking about Syria. These things are already prophesied by God, and they're going to happen. I do believe this is an end time prophecy, and it's going to happen. If it is an end time and I'm still alive to see it, I would like to see it. I wouldn't like to see everything that's happened. I wouldn't like to see people die. I wouldn't want to see a bunch of damage. But I do believe I will be alive to see this. And it's going to be a very fascinating thing. Let eventide trouble before the morning, he is not. This is the portion of them that spoil us, and the lot of them that rob us. And you try sowing the wind in Israel, and you're definitely going to reap the whirlwind. Like I say, going against Israel is not good for your health. I'm going to come back with Ezekiel 38. Pardon me. I'm going to come back with Psalm 83. And it gives you a bigger picture of what's going on here and the nations that come against real Israel at this time, and exactly what happened, what will happen. So I'm going to say to you once more that God bless you, and you have the message.